Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below.
Greetings once again, Pokemaniacs. Duuz-Diz-Din back again with more of the Pokemon Adventures manga, where last time we finished up the Sun and Moon arc. It was a knockdown, drag-out battle against Ultra Necrozma, trying their best to keep it from devouring the light of the world. But with the help of Nebi, the Lunala, and Solgaleo, they were able to overcome it with Sun and Moon joining hands with the Pokemon and downing it, handing it over to the Ultra Recon Squadron, who will hopefully be able to help the Pokemon in their own way. Baba got what was coming to him, trapped in Ultra Space with the Nihilego, but Gladion decided to venture into Ultra Space in order to retrieve him, not wishing to simply see him to his fate, but also making sure that he gets the punishment he deserves. Lily has decided to do her best to help her mother, taking her to Kanto to meet Bill, who has also had experience being fused with Pokemon. Moon had returned home, apparently having gotten what she needed to heal the Piplup she had injured, but is looking forward to one day returning to Alola soon, while Sun continues on his courier service. Now, no longer shackled by that deal, he simply does it now because, well, that's who he is, Sun the Courier. The Ultra Beasts have been returned to Ultra Space, and peace has come to Alola. And thus we venture to a new region, the Galar region, and the last Pokemon game I played, because I still haven't played either Scarlet or Violet. Still trying to find the time for that, but you can see how, if you're looking at the regular release schedule for a lot of these videos, it hasn't really been going as planned, so time is kind of up in the air. But hey, you never know. If I don't make it to Scarlet and Violet by the time the manga has wrapped up, that will be on pause. So this will be the last story arc I cover until Scarlet and Violet wraps up, because I'm greedy and I just want to kind of be able to go through it at my own pace instead of potentially waiting a long time for it to finish. I'd rather not pause in the middle of it like so many other things I've put on pause that I need to catch up with. So let's see if we actually make it to Scarlet and Violet by the end of this, or well, this will be a little bit of a going away for a while, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So let's venture into the Galar region and experience the wonderful world of Gigantamax and Dynamax, shall we? You know, I also should be honest, me not starting Scarlet and Violet right after this, if it doesn't, if the manga hasn't wrapped up, and not playing the games, also comes from the fact that I still haven't found my love for Scarlet and Violet. I was so into a lot of the elements of Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield, but nothing in Scarlet and Violet has really piqued my attention. None of the Pokemon either. Whereas Sun and Moon and Scarlet and Violet, oh god, man, there were some Pokemon I just really loved in both games. And it's one of the reasons why I also want to go back and play X and Y at some point. And I was hoping they'd have a remake of X and Y that I could play. But so far we've just gotten ZA, which I'm hearing some things that I'm just like, do I really want to play that? Because I haven't even played Legends Arceus either. But it looks interesting. I do want to play that one. But I mean, dude, I love Necrozma, Goliathpod, Lunala, and to a certain degree Solgaleo. Lycanroc, specifically the Midnight form, Vikavolt, which I'm so mad that Vikavolt like almost didn't completely appear in Sun and Moon, the manga. Incineroar is one of my favorite starters of all time. I also love Decidueye, and it's been a while since I've had a good love of two starters in a game. And Mimikyu, we didn't get to see Zoroark. I never actually got to use or see much of what Zoroark could do, but Guzzlord's my favorite Ultra Beast, and Salazzle's pretty cool. But this region, like, it doesn't have a lot of Pokemon that I love, but like there's a solid amount of Pokemon I love in this region. But then you get to Gen 9 and I'm just like, yeah, there's some Pokemon I like, but outside of one of the starters and a couple others, it's just like I could take them or leave a lot of the ones that I would call my favorite, like the favorites of that region, I'd say. Enough to comprise a team, and that's about it. But sorry for the preamble. Let's get into Sword and Shield. You see our two main characters on the front, and the starters. Like, what is it? Is it Score Bunny, Sobble, and okay, I had to look it up. Grookey, there we go, Grookey. We see one of the youngsters looking at a Galarian form Zigzagoon. He says, huh? Zigzagoon? Are you a Zigzagoon? I heard that in Galar, Pokemon from other regions have different types and appearances. It's really true, huh? Oh, so you're not from around here, huh? And the Zigzagoon's just bouncing all around the kid. But then the kid notices something. A Gigantamax Pangoro. Or, no, not Gigantamax, Dynamax. A Dynamax Pangoro. Which kind of gets me because that's one of my favorites from a completely different set of games. I think I had Pangoro on my team in Sword and Shield. I think so. At some point I've had a Pangoro on my Sun and Moon team and my Sword and Shield team. I think I got to the finale with it. You know, I was gonna try to bring up my team on my Switch to actually show you, since unlike my DS, that actually should be working, but I can't turn it on. So I'm gonna have to deal with that later on. But anyway, the kid sees a Dynamax Pangoro roaming through the fields of Galar. Oh, cool. Nice cover. Pocket Monster Special Sword and Shield, or Pokemon Adventure Sword and Shield. A new adventure begins. We see our two protagonists and the starters with the looming Pangoro. The kid shouts, "What? Pangoro and Galar are that huge?" But then it vanishes, as the kid says, as he rushes forward. But he ends up falling off of a cliff. As he plummets, something suddenly breaks his fall before he can go too far. He does hit it fairly hard, calling out, "Ow, ow." But, oh, he's on a leak. As someone calls out, "Hey, are you all right?" Okay. In most media, he's called Victor, but I know he's called something else here. They're not called Sword and Shield this time around because, probably because of Swordward and Shieldbert, I think. Oh, God. Not looking forward to those guys. So the young boy calls out, "Are you all right? I'll get you down from there now." He turns to his Surfetched, which, you know, I didn't actually put him on my team, but you know what? I'm not too good for Surfetch. Now, he wasn't in my list of favorite Pokemon, but thinking about it, you know what? Get in here, Surfetch. If I can get you to fit. Yeah, you can just go over in the corner here, Surfetch. Yeah, that works. Giant-ass leak sword. Surfetch. I love the help of him. Surfetch. It's so good. It's so good. I cannot poo-poo my nose at Surfetch. When the boy turns to Surfetch saying, "I'm counting on you," Surfetch bounds up the mountainside, grabbing onto his leap, placing the boy on his shield, and landing safely on the ground. The boy turns to the Pokemon saying, "You saved me, thank you." The other young boy, not Victor, comes up saying, "That Pokemon is called Surfetch. Are you hurt at all?" The boy says that no, I don't think so, only for him to faint. Probably the stress of the situation. As the boy soon comes to, oh God, what the hell? It's Ball Guy's helmet on a young girl's body. Ball Guy is fun, don't get me wrong, but it does kind of throw you seeing that face. And I'm glad they kind of leaned into how kind of creepy looking he is. And he's not a bad guy. Don't get me wrong. Ball Guy's kind of cool. In most media, she's called Gloria, but just like Victor, I think she's called something different here. The young boy freaks out. Okay, what? I should just learn their names. Casey, okay. And the young boy is Marvin. Right. Oh, he actually appears in the actual game. Cool. Probably fought him, but looking at his Pokemon, he definitely didn't register too hard in my mind. Marvin freaks out. Casey with the ball guy head goes chasing after him. Why are you doing this to this kid? She blocks his path and then throws off the helmet, saying, "Bah! Did I scare you?" Should I make her voice aggressively Scottish? Like, "Bah! Did I scare you?" She is aggressive, a little aggressive, as she's just running in place, saying, "Hey, did I scare you? I'm asking if I scared you." Holy, oh, Professor Magnolia to come and bump her in the back of the head. It's been a while since we actually had two characters who are very more familiar with the region. So I'm guessing that Marvin acts as our surrogate, and Magnolia boops her with a cane, saying, "Who stop that? What point is there in frightening the boy who's already been frightened, Shilly?" Oh, Shilly. Oh, is that what they... Oh, man. Different name. Or is it a nickname? Maybe. I guess we'll see. Shilly. Casey then says, "Is it frightening? I think Bulguy's face is cute." That... Professor Magnolia then says, "That isn't the issue here. And you are?" The boy says, My name is Marvin." Oh, they're near a camper. Magnolia then says, "Marvin, I see. We were preparing to set up camp here. Then you came running towards that cliff with the horrible yell. How in the world did you jump off that cliff?" Suddenly Casey yells, "Was it a test of courage? Or did some bullies tell you to jump off? Oh, I know. Was a scary Pokemon chasing you? And then before you knew it, you..." But Magnolia says, "Shilly, shush." Marvin's stunned by her. Boy, he has to be Scottish. He has to be aggressively Scottish for him to be thrown like that. He says, "That's not it. A gigantic Pangoro appeared and then it disappeared all in the blink of an eye. When I went to get a closer look at it, But Casey and Magnolia seem to just not really be registering. Casey then says, "Oopsie." But Magnolia says, "Don't you oopsie me. This is your fault, isn't it, Shilly?" Casey says, "My bad, Marvin." But then Marvin says, "Aren't you being a little informal? It's fine, but what's going on?" And Casey then goes on a tirade saying, "I was performing a Dynamax simulator experiment here. I thought it'd be okay since people rarely come out to this area. You see, the Dynamax simulator is one of, just to be sure you didn't mishear, one of, as you know, oh God, did you? Anyway, I'm talking about a hologram, a device that displays three-dimensional images. I made it. It makes it look like there's actually a giant Pokemon." But Magnolia says, "Shush, Shilly. Shilly, shush." Marvin's a little thrown, saying, I'm sorry. Can I just say thank you to the boy and Pokemon who saved me earlier?" Casey drags him along, saying, "Of course, right this way. After we go through here, you've got to be quiet. No yelling at all right?" I feel like that mostly applies to you. "Also, there's a Sobble there." And then she bursts in saying, okay. No, so and Shield. Sword and Shield. Oh boy. Okay, so Casey and Henry. "Henry, we're coming in. This boy Marvin says that he wants to thank you and Sir Fetched." Marvin says, weren't we supposed to be quiet? Huh? And then he notices Henry finally working on Sir Fetched Leak Blade, with Grookey and Score Bunny just watching. What the heck? Marvin then says, "That's the same person?" Thinking back to how Henry looked before. Suddenly, Casey comes walking out saying, "Hey, come on, Henry." Smacks him on the back, only for Henry to then point the blade at her. Oh God, a dangerous leak. And then Henry comes to, saying, "Oh, sorry, Casey. How long have you been here?" Casey then says, "Sheesh, Henry. Just how hard were you focusing?" Henry's mood gets a little bit more mellow, saying, "Oh, you're awake. Were you hurt at all?" Henry, having a much more pleasant mood, says, "Oh, you're awake?" See, I'm drifting between Scottish and British. "Oh, you're awake. Were you hurt at all?" The boy says, Marvin says, "Okay, thank you for saving me. Do you mind if I ask what you're doing?" Henry then says, "Just a bit of maintenance on Sir Fetch's leak stock." Casey then says, "Henry's a gearmeister, you know." Marvin questions, "Gear?" Casey explains, Fairfetch's leek, Marowak's bones, Sumrat's scimitars, Delphox's branches, girders, steel beams. Gear is the term Henry went and made up for tools that Pokemon use. So Henry says, went up and made. That's a little harsh, wouldn't you say? Henry explains, saying, Grookey, the chimp Pokemon, his gear is that stick. He then takes it and brushes it a little bit, saying, if I do this, the grain will become perfectly strained, making it firmer and stronger. Marvin says, wow. Casey then goes in saying, all right, you should come try a Dynamax simulator next. So Magnolia says, wait a moment, Chili. You don't want to scare anyone or cause any accidents again, so just use your VR goggles. VR? Huh. Marvin says, oh, no. Casey says, the names, I'm trying hard to, keep up with the English names they're using in the manga, and then you have the Japanese names, and then you have the names that they use for the games. So I'm turned around at every corner. But I'm determined to do this because of no other reason but because I want to. Wait a moment, Casey. We don't want to scare anyone or cause any incidents again, so just use your VR goggle. Casey then says, oh, that way is super amazing too. Are you okay with that, Marvin? Marvin then raises his hand saying, sorry, but what exactly is Dynamax? I just moved to this region, so I don't know much about anything here. It's interesting that they made both characters new to native to the region, but I guess it makes sense. It's been a while since we've really had something like that. Casey says, for real, for starters, put this on in battle. Then you'll understand what Dynamaxing is. Switch on. The switch. And she puts the headset on Marvin's head. He freaks out saying, whoa, and he sees a massive Pangoro. Casey says, let's start it now. I'm going to use my Skull Bunny. You don't have any Pokemon, do you, Marvin? Henry says, try battling with my Surfetch then. Marvin takes out the headset saying, oh, wait a second. What should I call you to? I still don't know your names. Yeah, definitely the Japanese names. I can't do that. We gotta go with English names here. Henry says, I'm Henry Sword. You can call me Henry. Whatever works for you. While Casey says, I'm Casey Shield. You can call me Shieldy. Or call me Casey. However that works. Again, I don't know how well this would translate into the regular English manga. It's one downside of reading the translation. It's just everything's so thrown off for me. And then Magnolia adds, I'm Professor Magnolia. You don't have to call me Maggie, though. Marvin turns to her saying, Professor? Wait, would that make me Marvy? It's wacky. Oh, and that chapter, the previous chapter was titled, wow, that's one big Pokemon. And now we move on to chapter 2, Crackle, Practice Battle. And we have a nice cover page with Leon looming in the background with his Charizard. So Marvin tries to get it straight, and that'll help me get it straight too. He says, Henry Sword, Casey Shield, and Professor Magnolia. Casey then jams the goggles back on his head saying, come on, Marvin, I told you to call me Shilly. Just call me Casey. More importantly, hurry up and put on the VR goggles. And now he's back in the VR with the massive Pangoro. All the Pokemon wear the goggles too. I guess it makes sense. As Henry says, Casey, we gotta put on our goggles too. Casey says, all right, you guys too. And all the Pokemon put on the goggles. I wonder why Casey isn't wearing her beret. It brings out the full Scottish. Casey then shouts, all right, let's do this, Marvin. Beat this Pangara in a battle of... Marvin says, do what exactly? Casey says, beat this Pangara in a battle, obviously. Marvin then shouts, but I've never battled before. Casey says, seriously? Marvin says, I do know how they work, though. You unleash your move and decrease the opponent's stamina until they're unable to battle. If you want to make a wild Pokemon opponent a part of your team, you have to throw a Pokeball before they faint. Henry then says, if you know that at least that much, you'll be just fine. Let's try this out together. Casey then shouts, Professor, get it started. Magnolia says, all right. And so the Pokemon goes on the attack. As Pangoro goes in with a mighty punch, and Marvin scampers away. Casey tells him, don't run away. Marvin says, but it feels like I was getting shocked. Casey says, it's better if it feels like you actually get attacked, right? That's why I use high-frequency electricity to let you feel the move's impact. But that doesn't mean you'll actually get hurt. It is painful, though, so the shock might kill you. Marvin says, what? Casey, why would you make something like this? Henry waves over, saying, Professor, please pause it for a moment. And so Pangoro comes to a stop. Henry kneels down to Marvin, saying, Marvin, where did you learn about Pokemon battles? Why were you able to approach the giant Pangoro before without wanting to run away? Marvin says, that's because I wanted to catch a Pokemon and go on a journey with it someday. Then we challenged gyms, and Casey says, that's all the more reason to practice. Galar's gym battles are Dynamax battles, you know. Professor, start it up again! And so the Pangoro goes in for another swing, and Marvin dodges. Henry sends out Grookey, saying out, Grookey, use Leaf Edge. While Casey sends in Scorbunny, saying, Scorbunny, use Ember. Both Pokemon do just that. Okay. Hey, where's Hawk? And I guess with how this is set up, they set up that Henry has the tools, so Grookey goes to him. Casey's a little hot-headed, so Scorbunny makes sense. So Sobble goes to Hawk. Henry points to Pangoros, telling Marvin, take a good look. Do you see how there's always a short moment of time between offense and defense? Marvin says that's the preparation time before unleashing moves. I learned that at the trainer school. You take advantage of that time and attack, and you keep doing that to accumulate damage. Considering type compatibility is important too, right? Pangoro is a dark-type Pokemon, so Surfetch is a fighting type. It can use the move Meteor Assault. That means it has an advantage. Henry says, yes, but that's on its own isn't enough. When a Pokemon Dynamax its stamina and attack both increase. If you're too far away from it, it's easier to get targeted. You've got to have the courage to get up close and personal. Marvin swallows hard. Marvin gulps, I guess I should say. Henry pats him on the back, saying, go on. And Marvin charges in with Surfetch. Pangoro brings his foot down and stomps, sending Marvin flying. He holds his shoulder, saying, that really hurts. I really don't like this. Pokemon battles are scary. But as Pangoro brings his foot down again, Surfetch steps in, blocking the hit. Marvin says, Surfetch. Pangoro again goes in again for another hit. Marvin says, the offense and defense gap. Surfetch, Meteor Assault. And Surfetch does just that, bringing down the Pangoro with ease. And thus the simulation ends. Casey comes in saying, you did it, Marvin! While Henry says, your timing and distance were perfect. As they bring off the VR headset, Marvin says, Surfetch protected me. Partnership with Pokemon. I learned that at school, but this is the real thing, huh? I was an honor student at the trainer school in the region I used to live in, but I haven't been able to get used to my new school here. I stopped being able to go to school, and I haven't had the courage to catch a Pokemon, but I think I can do it now. Henry puts a hand on his shoulder, saying, come with us. And you see Magnolia, I think she's giving a thumbs up. Marvin says, huh? Oh, okay. Henry says, Professor, that's fine, right? And Magnolia's giving the thumbs up. Marvin says, but I haven't talked to my parents and I have to talk to my parents first and prepare. Well, man, I am really not reading this right. But I have to talk to my parents and prepare first. And he says, you can do that once we leave. And Casey pushes him in, saying, come on, in you go. Henry may not look like it, but once he makes up his mind, he won't budge. Magnolia then says, I may not look like it either, but I'm actually a famous scientist here in Galar. I think I can help get your parents' understanding. Casey then cries out, off we go! And their camper takes off. It's interesting that you're doing things with Magnolia from the get-go first, though. That's not bad, actually. Because I'm pretty sure you know Magnolia in the game, too. But it makes a lot of sense. You see Marvin on his Rotom phone, and he's telling his parents, right, I'll be off then. I'm actually going on a journey. Wow, you actually got to convince them in the dead of night. That's how you know this is a different world. Casey says, as they say, jump before you look. They did not say that. Marvin says, it's all thanks to you three. My parents were surprised too. They asked how I managed to get acquainted with Professor Magnolia since she's such a famous research authority on Dynamaxing. I think it's Magnolia who explains, Dynamaxing is a phenomenon that occurs only at specific places in the Galar region, called power spots. However, there are more conditions than just location that must be met for the phenomenon to occur. As part of that research, I had Casey make a simulator. Casey shouts, that's not really what it's for, though. Marvin says, that means... Casey shouts, it's to help us train for the gym challenge, of course. Marvin says, you're both going to take part? Henry says, we more so just think it'd be nice if we could. Well, Casey slams on the table saying, it's really difficult to get an endorsement, I mean. And Marvin says, where I'm from, it was possible for anyone to challenge the gyms. Casey says, I guess here, it's common for trainer strength to be acknowledged locally by a nearby gym before they enter the gym challenge. Henry says, you can also get an endorsement from the champion or league chairman. Marvin then asks, what kind of person is Galar's champion? Henry goes for the TV saying, doesn't that program about the gym challenge start airing tonight? The champion should be getting some screen time. Magnolia says, that reminds me, we haven't had dinner yet. Let's prepare it before the program starts. And so as they're eating that curry, cooking in Galar, always a fun time. The announcer says, visiting the 8 stadiums and defeating the gym leaders who await their challenge. Furthermore, the trainers who complete the gym challenge earn the right to join the annual tournament, in which they vie for the title of league champion. That tournament is called the Champion Cup. Let's call in our first guest, the current champion, undefeated since his debut, Leon. Someone comes up to tell her, apparently the champion still hasn't been seen in Motorstroke, where our studio is located. Yeah, that's Leon. In the anime, he's constantly getting lost and he's constantly all over the place in the games. At least that's consistent no matter which version. Currently, a flock of Wooloo has wandered onto the train tracks on the outskirts of Wedgehurst, and the train has been stopped. We believe that the champion may have gotten caught in the conundrum. Magnolia then says, the outskirts of Wedgehurst, the rail line to Motorstoke, those are both... He says, they're nearby, right? Over there. Okay, and Casey sends out a drone. Marvin asking, what did you send out? Casey says, a Vigavolt drone. Vigavolt video drone. As they, I guess, look at the monitor, I think. And he says, there he is. It's Leon. They see Leon being chased by a herd of Wooloo. Marvin says, they're chasing him. Shouldn't we save him? And he says, no. Look again, Marvin. Marvin says, Charizard is hurting them from the other side. Oh yeah, the Wooloo. I forgot that's one of the first things you have to do in the game. Help gather up all those Wooloo. I forgot about that. And he says, Ian is gathering their attention, and Charizard is chasing them. While Casey says, so they're getting the Wooloo off the tracks. We see Leon help shepherd in some Wooloo. I've never seen a sheep herding Charizard. And someone says, another herd came out and replaced the old one. Really? What the heck? The workers say again? The cycle has been repeating for a while now, Leon. What's throwing them to the track? As Leon tries to examine the situation, Henry calls out, the problem isn't in the track, it's in the fence, am I right? Leon asks, who are you two? Casey says, I'm Casey. And Henry says, we'll help you out, Leon. Casey, I'm counting on you to navigate me. Casey says, gotcha. Casey sends in the drone as Henry makes his way over to the Wooloo. Casey then shouts as Leon is taken off guard by her, shouting, Henry, there's a cloud of dust in front of you to the left. Keep going that way. Then turn right. At the very back of the herd, running around, there's an Obstagoon. Yes, my boy. One of my all-time favorites, Obstagoon. Always on my team. Can't go wrong with a good Obstagoon. One of the workers says, it must have been scaring the Wooloo within the fence. Henry then commands Sirfetch'd to use Slam, but Obstagoon manages to block it. The workers say, that's Obstruct. It's strong enough to withstand a hit from that leak stock? Henry then gets serious, saying, if that's the case, we'll confuse it with our footwork. Sirfetch'd then starts to circle Obstagoon. Now Obstagoon starts to get confused. The workers say, I get it. Now it doesn't know which one to use Obstruct on. Before it knows it, Obstagoon's about to be met with the business end of Sirfetch'd's Leak Sword. But Sirfetch'd stops, just inches in front of Obstagoon's face. Obstagoon starts to waver, intimidated by Sirfetch'd's manly gaze, and it books it. Henry then calls out, Leon, it's all clear now. And both Leon and Henry close the gate, entrapping the Wooloo. Leon shakes Henry's hand, saying thanks. Henry says, of course. But then Casey shouts, more importantly, shouldn't you hurry to the TV studio. If you leave now, you'll make it in time for the broadcast. Professor Magnolia then approaches, saying, "Be careful not to get lost, all right, Leon?" Leon says, "Professor Magnolia, do you know these two?" Magnolia says, "I do. They're assisting me in my research." Then Leon has this melancholic look, saying, "Is Sonia well?" Magnolia says she's quite busy these days, bustling about. The Champion Cup starts next week. Please tell her to come this year for sure. Oh, I think it's Leon who says that. See, some of the word balloons are pointing to the wrong character. Magnolia says, "I know, you should get going now." And so the train takes off, leaving everyone else behind. Marvin comes up questioning, "You know the champion, Professor?" Magnolia pauses and says, "That went well, didn't it, you two?" Henry smiles, saying, "I'd say so." Well, Casey says, "Your timing was great, Professor." Marvin questions, what are you all talking about? Henry says, "On top of taking care of that old Sagoon, we got the Wooloo back inside the fence. Doing that much is nothing to Leon." And then Casey shouts, "But we stepped in and offered to help him out. And then when we brilliantly chased off that old Sagoon, that definitely had to leave an impression on him. We did more than just get rid of it, too. We chased it off with just one glare. That showed incredible strength. And after finding out we work with the professor, what comes next should be obvious." They were all trying to just impress him. So, was this planned? We cut over to Rose Tower, where Chairman Rose answers his phone saying, "Hello, Leon. Is something the matter?" "Trainer endorsement. I see. Someone caught your eye." I see. Very well. Once you get their profile, let me know. Goodbye now." And then says, "Oleana?" And Oleana says, "Of course, Chairman Rose." We then cut back into the RV. Casey shouting, "Huh? The show ended. Leon never got to appear after all." Henry then says, he should have been able to make it for at least the last 30 minutes if he went on that train." Magnolia then says, "That boy has absolutely no sense of direction." And is he back in Motostock? As we see Leon next to a bus stop saying, "That's odd. I'm back where I was earlier." Yeah, that's Leon. In any version, lost is his defining characteristic. Alright, so I finally managed to get my Switch all charged up. That way I could actually show you the team I had. We're gonna do this as ghetto as possible. Just, nope. Yeah, no, you can't really see that. But I had Noivern, Grimmsnarl, Eliaspod, Toxtricity, Inteleon, and, Obstagoon. Yeah. You can at least see it. And then I'm dressed for the, Crown Tundra. I never finished the Crown Tundra, unfortunately enough. Just because I kind of lost interest. It was, I don't know. Because I'm not someone who's Jones, I gotta have the legendaries. I just feel like, some of the changes to some Pokemon are cool, like the bird trio, but I'm just like, I'm not mad up to get all of them. It's weird just going around collecting a whole bunch of legendaries in that, but that's neither here nor there. Our next chapter is Chomp, Defeat Dreadnought. Oh yeah, I had a Dreadnought. Did that evolve at? Oh yeah, Choodle. Yeah, Choodle. Yeah, I had a Dreadnought for a little while. Now this is gonna feel especially nostalgic because it wasn't that long ago that I played this game. All right, we pick up with Marvin waking up in the RV, saying, "Huh? Where am I? All right, I'm inside Professor Magnolia's motorhome. I'm finally going on a journey." Most people don't really get to go in a motorhome on their journey. It's usually just camping, which is especially funny because this is the most campingest game out there, honestly, with the wild areas and stuff. Man, Sword and Shield really kind of pioneered a lot of the more funner elements of the games, and it was like, okay, finally Pokemon's gonna start going even further with a lot of what they wanted. But then all I heard about Scarlet and Violet, I'm just like, oh, I feel like you missed the mark on what people wanted. You know, there was a reason why people like Legends so much. And then he did ZA and people were just kind of, it's good. But then again, I feel like that's a situation where I need to play the games to fully get that experience. So Marvin gets up and walks around the RV saying, Professor, where are Henry and Casey? There we go. Mind had to operate. Suddenly, what's very obviously Casey's voice says, 14 seconds! Marvin knocks on the door saying, it's me, Marvin. Out comes Henry and Casey with their Pokemon, Grookey and Scorbunny. Henry saying, oh, you're up? Come on in. Casey says, yahoo! And then we get a full layout of the RV. Pickup truck, we got the pickup truck, capable of auto drive. Professor Magnolia is the driver. What's her driving style like? That's a good question. We got the bench seats in the back. Oh, it's Henry's bed. Oh, so he sleeps in the truck. Okay, that makes a certain degree of sense. Shield's operating room. Dynamax simulations are also carried out here. Oh, okay. Ball guy costume head. Is it the real deal? She's really just carrying that around. Henry's workshop. Okay. Tool stand. Floor cushion, furnace, and bellows. Yeah, that was in there. You have a furnace? Oh, interesting. 3-tier workbench. Oh my god. Easy to switch to anvil or whetstone. My god. Refrigerator. Obviously contains berries along with curry ingredients, obviously. Sink, the shells contain a large pot and other things needed to make curry outside, of course. No need to worry, the shower and toilet work perfectly. I wasn't really worried about that, but it's good to know. Combo living room and bedroom. Fold the table to quickly transform the sofa into Casey and the professor's beds. And the television. Okay. My wife wants to ride around in a motorhome. So Casey's walking into the operations station. Well, Marvin, there we go. He says, what is this room? Casey sits back in her seat saying, it's my room. I programmed the Dynamax simulator and analyzed data in here. Marvin then asks, what was that 14 seconds about? Casey, I love how everything she says is a shout. Again, she's so Scottish. That's how long it took for Mr. Leon to get to Wooloo off of the tracks and back into their enclosure. Marvin then questions, you kept track of that? For what? Casey says, for when we challenge him, obviously. It isn't possible to learn everything about him just by watching him battle. It was the perfect chance to see his thought process and how he adapts to different situations. Jeez. Oh god, why is Magnolia so intense? See, again, with the speech bubbles feeling like they're pointing at the wrong person. It's pointed at Casey, but it's obviously Henry. Thank God that she shouts everything, so it's easy to tell when Casey's speaking. Henry says, that's why we really should have filmed him until he chased the Obstagoon away, but then Casey interrupts saying, it was more important for us to let him know that we exist. After all, if we don't get to participate in the gym challenge, none of this will matter. Now Marvin then questions, where's Professor Magnolia? Casey says, she's driving. She could just put the truck on auto drive though. And I think it's Henry who says, well, she does love to drive. She says there's a thrill in racing through passes or something. She's pulling an initial D. Casey, take a look at Surfetch data too. Casey says, sure thing. First, there's how it moved while saving Marvin, and how it moved while fighting the fake Pangoro. I'll take the data from when it battled that Obstagoon for analysis too. And so things are easier to compare, I'll make graphics under uniform conditions. My god. She is a nerd. Couple of nerds. Oh, its speed from when it juts out to when it reaches its target is up. Your repair in the evening was good. And Henry says, I gave the angle of the sword point a bit of an acute angle, just like you said, Casey. And then Casey, I love how yelling just takes Marvin off guard, saying, yeah, clearly air resistance has been reduced. Soaking it in natural spring water was probably good too. The leak's rate of expansion clearly has gone down. I wonder if it's the influence of the minerals. First I'll change the hardness one at a time and analyze. Next we'll change the strength, okay? Based on the distortion from the change in shape after slam, the influence from soaking it in spring water is... But suddenly, the motorcade starts to shake, and the ball guy head hits Marvin on the head. Casey radios in to the professor saying, Professor, what the heck? What are you doing up there, you daft woman? The professor says, it seems we got a flat tire. Henry says, we've got to repair it. I'll investigate at once. Marvin heads out saying, I'll help too. But Henry says, Marvin, wait. It's dangerous to dash out. Marvin pauses saying, huh? Casey says, there's a chance the cause of the flat is a wild Pokemon, which is a good point. Everyone proceeds outside with care. Scorbunny uses his burning foot to light up the area while Grookey searches around on top of the motorcade. Actually not sure what do they call it again? A motorhome. Yeah, I should just call it a motorhome. I'm trying to think of like a fancy word or something. Henry says, as far as I can see, there's no trace of a wild Pokemon. Grookey then takes his stick and taps on the tires, while Casey comes out saying, this tire, right? I'll analyze the gas, so light it up, Scorbunny. It's a gas from passing over hard-pointed objects. Hey, Sobble, you can't go out? Oh, Sobble gets all teary-eyed. Like, how dare you tell him no? Marvin says, I'm sure it wants to help too. But Casey says, it doesn't have a trainer, so no. If it encounters a strong wild Pokemon, it won't know how to escape or fight, and then it might get lost, she says with tears in her eyes. Marvin tears up too, saying, are you worried enough to cry? Well, Casey says, Marvin, you too. And Marvin, feels the tears streaming out of his eyes, saying, huh? Henry comes over saying, it seems there's the equivalent of 100 onion tear inducing components in Sobble's tears. Oh, really? Oh, God, I didn't know that. Marvin says, I see. Sobble, wait in the car together with me. But as he holds his hands out for Sobble, Sobble sees something behind Marvin and hides under one of the tires. But Marvin takes it the wrong way, saying, huh? Do you dislike me that much? Now I want to cry for a different reason. But suddenly something bursts out from the ground behind Marvin, from underneath the ground behind Marvin. There we go. I got there. It's a pack of Dreadnought. Oh, was it their horns that they ran over? Casey says, Dreadnought, 3 of them. The gas in the tire and the shape of their shell match. We passed over where they were under the road. The Dreadnought close in on the 3 children and their Pokemon. Henry says, Marvin, get in the car. And Marvin says, okay. As he tries to make his way in, one of the Dreadnought tries to go for him, but it's stopped by, what is that, a pillar? I'm not really sure what did it hit the doorway? Maybe? Henry then says nonchalantly, they really want to attack, huh? Casey, what type of Pokemon are they? And Casey just blanks, very simply saying, I don't know, huh? But I knew they were Dreadnought right away. I guess I really forgot. Hey, she forgot. Does she have amnesia or something? Like, Henry seems to be honing in on this, pretty specifically. How interesting. Okay, what's up with that? Because Casey just kind of takes it off, saying, well, whatever. I'll probably remember while fighting. Scorbunny, separate those 3. And so she has Scorbunny race in between the Dreadnought, kind of throwing them off, ducking and diving in between their chunks. Marvin says, what amazing speed. It's so fast. It's emitting fire from under its feet. Casey then calls out, when the pads under its feet get hot, it's proof it's ready to fight. Go! And Scorbunny comes in with a scorching kick. And it seems like Dreadnought got some damage from that. Hey, isn't Dreadnought watertight? Could have sworn. But Marvin says, hooray, it got burnt. Casey then calls out, Scorbunny, the next one too. But as Scorbunny moves in, seems to notice something. Oh, the one it kicked before is chasing it. Man, it's gaining. Marvin says it's carrying that heavy-looking shell on its back, but its speed matches Scorbunny. Scorbunny just barely manages to avoid a collision between the 2 Dreadnought. Marvin calls out, Henry, Casey's in trouble. Yeah, you're in trouble too. As Grookey's stick is being chomped on by one of the Dreadnought. Magnolia then calls out, Marvin, please throw the smartphones in the living room table to them. Marvin says, huh? It won't reach them if I throw them. Magnolia smiles, saying, it'll be fine. Marvin does it, saying, geez. He grabs the phones, throws them, saying, here. But the phones do not make it towards the 2. With Marvin saying, look, I told you, didn't I? But suddenly, the Rotom Dexes come to life, and much to Marvin's surprise, he says, what? They head over to Henry and Casey. Marvin says, Professor. Magnolia says, do you know of a Pokemon called Rotom? It's a Pokemon that loves to enter vacuums, fridges, and other electrical appliances. It goes into smartphones and Galar. And tonight I installed the Pokédex function into the Rotom phone. Marvin says, Pokédex? Then Henry and Casey are Pokédex holders. Okay, Marvin, what do you know about Pokédex holders? You said that with a lot of gusto, and that's not something that's kind of been brought up for a arc or so. The significance of being a Pokédex holder. Ooh, and 2 different entries. I was kind of hoping the Rotom Dex, well, the Pokédex, well, the Rotom Phone. What do I actually call them here? I actually don't remember. Man, they're just Rotom Phones. Yeah, Rotom Phone. See, it doesn't roll off the tongue in the same way Rotom Dex does. And thinking about it now, because the Rotom Dex was such a significant upgrade. And then the Rotom Phone, yeah, and even in the next game generation, it's still the Rotom Phone. Okay. Yeah, it's like once you hit the Rotom Phone, that was it for everything else, every other design. Which is kind of fine because, I mean, it's a smartphone. I mean, once we hit smartphones, that was it, baby. If it can't fit into your smartphone, what's the point? But we did kind of lose out on a lot of the cool design elements for different Pokédexes. So, kind of got to take the good with the bad. But, okay, Dreadnought, the bite Pokemon. Yeah, it's water rock. It extends and retracts its neck. It extends its neck from a distant place in one go and brings down opponents with its sharp fang. And the other entry says, has a violent nature. With the power of its jaws, it can bite off iron rods. It chomps down on its prey. Henry then calls out, Casey, get plenty of distance from them. While Casey says, Henry, you tempered that stick, so I don't think it can be bit off. But don't overestimate yourself. They then both go racing in. Henry calls out, Rookie, don't try too hard to get it back. Match your opponent's push and pull, and then move. Even if it crunches and takes it, don't fixate on that stick. Meanwhile, with Scorbunny being chased after by the 2, Casey calls out, the bird one's speed dropped. It won't be able to move after a bite. Confuse it. After a bit, I think. So Scorbunny starts zigzagging, and with Dreadnought suffering from the burns, when the other Dreadnought goes to move, the burnt one doesn't see the movement, ends up colliding with the other one. Oh, but it goes flying right towards Scorbunny and chomps down. Jeez. Casey says, oh, no way. Of all things you bite, it's Flame Pouch. Flame Pouch? Henry questions, yeah, like me, Flame Pouch. And Magnolia says, it's a place around Scorbunny's neck that's said to be its second heart. Second heart? Huh. So I hit the weak point. Yeah, Scorbunny's down. Henry says, huh? When did Sobel get there? And as Sobel is standing over Scorbunny crying, the other Dreadnought who didn't get sent flying or burned gets angry, sees it, and goes charging in. Marvin calls out, watch out! The Sobel then vanishes, much to the shock of the Dreadnought and Marvin, with all Dreadnought chomping down on as a puddle. But with the remains of Sobel getting on it, he starts to cry profusely and goes running around in confusion as Marvin scoops up Scorbunny. The crying Dreadnought goes ramming into the other one, fighting with Grookey. Henry, seeing an opportunity, calls out, now Grookey! And Grookey goes and bashing one of the Dreadnoughts. Meanwhile, Casey calls out, Sobel, where did you go? While Henry says, when it gets wet, the color of its skin changes and it becomes invisible. Henry then calls out, it's probably right here. As when Sobel becomes visible again, it's clinging to Marvin's ankle. So he does get the Sobel. Then what does Hop get? Dang, this is one of the situations where it actually would work. But then again, didn't Leon end up getting the third Pokemon that you don't choose? Huh. So does Hop not factor in too much into the story? I mean, there's not too much to the Sword and Shield story. It's pretty straightforward. And now, honestly, I'm wondering, do they even tackle the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra? See, this is the one game where I've actually played most of it. Like, I have played most of it. I only don't know about how things finish up with Peony. That's it. I know everything else in the game. It's weird because it's the one game that I'm just like, I have most of the knowledge about this. It's just that I haven't really played it in a while. Shit, I had to go back in and get a little bit used to how things were, playing a little bit of the Crown Tundra. But Magnolia, seeing this, says, how about it, Marvin? Do you want to raise Sobel? Marvin says, huh? Is that okay? Well, Casey just smiles and says, if both you and Sobel are fine with it, then it's fine, isn't it? Marvin kneels down saying, is that okay, Sobel? And Sobel wells up with tears and goes leaping into Marvin's arms and then disappears, leaving everyone happy and crying at the same time. Oh, man. Oh, okay. I thought maybe that one dreadnought ran into what looked like a girder. Huh. Okay, I know that Pokemon. But why does it seem to be stalking the motorhome? Interesting. But then we cut to, at the same time, turf field at the turf stadium. A young boy comes running up to the gym saying, Milo, big bro, did you hear? Mr. Leon. And we see the turf stadium gym leader, Milo. He has a great design, but he really doesn't, because of how early in he is in the game, he gets very forgettable right away. But I do love Milo's disposition. He's such a good old boy. As he says, yes, I heard that Leon recommended 2 people, right? It's something that never happens. Oh, we're seeing all of them. Next up is the Holberry Stadium gym leader, Nessa. It says, the champion recommended 2 people. Oh, man, word's getting around. Next up is Motostoke Stadium gym leader, Kabu. Kabu, wise old man, who I don't have to put on a British accent for, saying, whoever recommendation it is, I'll just strike with my best as usual. Yep, that's Kabu. And we have Opal, who says, how interesting. Okay, so, oh, right. We have the Balloon Leah Stadium gym leader, Opal. Okay, you gotta understand, a lot of these names, I don't actually know how most of them are pronounced, because I mostly just read it. It's the downside of most of the Pokemon game having nothing but text and no voice acting. And I didn't really watch the anime for a lot of this. But the announcer says, the undefeated champion Leon made 2 recommendations. That rumor circulated all the gyms of Galar in the blink of an eye. Okay, dang, that's it. Alright, and the last chapter we'll be looking at is Chapter 4, Zap, a Rising Beam of Light. And I guess they're trying to figure out nicknames for Sobel, saying Sobo, Sobler, Sobby, Sobby? Sobby spelled in different ways. And to Casey saying, good morning, huh? What are you 2 boys doing? Henry says, good morning, Casey. And Marvin says, I was picking a nickname with Henry. Henry says, we'll meet lots of trainers during the gym challenge after all. It'd get confusing when battling a trainer with the same Pokemon. There's no saying that sort of thing would never happen, right? Oddly enough, it's very rarely happened in the manga, as far as I can tell. And the anime, it actually happens a lot. Man, between the 2 Charizard battle, or even the 2 Incineroar battle with Ash in the finals of the Pokemon League, just, Incineroar fainting while standing, amazing. As if I didn't have more of a reason to love Incineroar, it being one of the Pokemon that led to Ash winning a Pokemon League. Just, mwah. Yes. Casey then says, so did you decide on one? Okay, I had to check and find out that, of course, the names are different in English. So Henry calls Grookey, says, I went with nicknames after gear. Grookey is Twiggy, not Stickin' Twiggy. And Sir Fetched is not Lancey, Lancelot. Casey says, that's great, nice to meet you again. Twiggy, Lancelot, how about your Sobel? Mara says, I've made up my mind. Okay, not Teary, Sniffler. Oh boy. I've chosen a very hard path when it comes to these adaptions. The motorcade comes to a stop, and Casey says, we're stopped. We're finally here. Martin says, finally where? And as Casey heads outside, she says, the wild area, obviously. Yeah, the wild area. Pokemon just roaming around outside. You kind of had that in the Sun and Moon, too, and some of the other games, but the wild area was what we've been waiting for a long time. Martin says, what's the wild area? Magnolia says, it's a vast land abundant in nature where a great variety of Pokemon live. Martin says, Professor. Professor explains, here you can train for battles and even catch new teammates. But depending on the area, unbelievably strong wild Pokemon live in herds. It's dangerous to approach them recklessly. Yeah, I gotta love it. It was such a good way of approaching things, and then they would power up depending on the area and stuff. So you get stronger and stronger wild Pokemon, and you can see any variety of Pokemon sometimes. It was one of the better ideas they had. Casey, why don't you start off by investigating the Rolling Hills area? Casey says, Roger. Marvin questions, what are you going to investigate? Casey says, Marvin, did you already forget what the professor's specialty is? Marvin says, the phenomenon where Pokemon get huge and stronger, Dynamaxing. As they enter into Casey's lab, she explains, the Dynamaxing phenomenon is deeply related to power spots, and there are lots of power spots in the wild area. You can find some by walking around the wild area, but if we use this power spot search machine, here it is. There are 9 power spots in the Rolling Hills area. Magnolia says, let's investigate them in turns then. What kind of Pokemon are living in which den? As everyone gets into the truck part of the vehicle, Marvin questions, what's a den? Magnolia says, that's what we call power spots in the wild area. Take a look over there. You can see that pillar of light. Marvin says, I can. Honestly, I didn't always go to the power spots. Pokemon are quite literally living inside there. And on top of that, they are Dynamax Pokemon. Marvin says, they're not images like yesterday, they're real Pokemon? Casey says, if we enter the den, then we'll have to battle the Pokemon. And if we can win, we can capture them too, right? Magnolia says, if you win, that is. However, we're here to collect data. Please don't rush it. Marvin questions, you can't know what Pokemon it is unless you go inside? Casey says, not exactly. If you actually go near the den, the rotomap will tell you. And the rotomap ding-a-lings. Oh, Casey steps out of the vehicle and waves over to a Pelipper, saying, whoa, it's here, hey! And the Pelipper drops off something. Casey says, thanks, package received. Thanks for your hard work. And she signs with her finger, and the Pelipper takes off. That's interesting delivery. Well, actually, I think that was in the game, but it was like an icon, I think? As she opens the package, Henry and Marvin make their way over, with Casey saying, look, it's from the Gym Challenge Executive Office. She holds up 2, challenge shirts, saying, ta-da! Marvin says, uniforms? Casey says, for official matches. Marvin then asks, is there a meaning to the number on the back? Casey says, it's my favorite number. It's 303. And Henry says, oh, wearing those was part of the rules, wasn't it? I had completely forgotten. And Henry's is 808. Okay, what is the significance of these numbers? Gotta quickly check it out. 808, it can be read as August 8th, the date in which the first volume of Pokemon Adventures was released in Japan. Oh, that's a heck of a reference. And 303, March 3rd, the date when Pokemon Adventures was first published. Oh, okay. Oh, those are deep cuts. Yeah, I don't think anybody would really guess that right off the top of their head. My favorite number is 3, so I would either go with 333 or 666, just to be metal. Oh, a Linoon. Henry says, should we try them on to see if they fit right? Casey says, yeah. But then they notice a Linoon approaching, Casey telling Henry to watch out, as it seems like the Linoon is targeting their uniforms. Oh, it's them. As they bring out their Pokemon, Henry bringing out Sirfetch'd and Casey bringing out Scorbunny, Casey says, hey, what would you do if our uniforms got torn? But someone comes in telling them, okay, I gotta go full Cockney with this. That's not our problem. Your uniforms are gonna get torn up, yo. Oh, God. They finish every sentence with yo. And I think it's the female saying, as if you couldn't tell who these guys were. You give up on the gym challenge, Yell. Henry Sword and Casey Shield, your fates are sealed, Yell. God, don't have them finish every sentence with Yell. Please, no, please, anything but that. Anything but that. No. Okay, did they actually say yell at the end of their sentence? No. Okay, it's just a thing for the manga, as far as I can tell. Casey says, well, what are you saying? Henry questions, how did you find out our names and locations? The male figure says, the 2 trainers recommended by the champion, traveling around in Professor Magnolia's motorhome, Yell. You're the talk of the region, Yell. That's why we're here to stop you. And then both of them say, we're Team Yell. And they got a Thuval. Henry says, so you're here to keep us from taking on the gym challenge? The female says, that's right. While the male grunt says, get him, Line-In, Thuval. Sucker punch. Well, they send in Line-In to use sucker punch. Coming up behind Henry, Henry calls in Lancelot, and Sir Fetch uses his leak shield to defend. They try to have Thuval use Night Slash, with Casey doing her best to avoid her uniform getting ripped. He calls out, Jace, why does stuff like this have to happen? Yelling out for our goddess victory. Oh, it's the male grunt saying, yelling out for our goddess's victory is what Team Yell does. And Casey questions, and just who might this goddess be? Oh, God. And then they hold up their pictures, saying, our goddess, the famous, illustrious Lady Bonnie. Casey then shouts, who the heck is that? This goddess of yours makes you act like a bunch of unfair cowards. Again, Scottish rage. This just aggroes the grunts. The female saying, a doubly insulting... Nope, not Scottish. A doubly insulting remark. The male grunt says, Lady Marty would never make us act unfairly. So Marvin says, so they know they're being unfair, right? Okay, I have to get into that Cockney mindset. Oi, oi, oi! There we go. The female says, our souls cry out for Lady Marnie's victory, and we'll do whatever it takes to support her. While the male grunt says, we won't forgive you, sending in Thuval and Line-In. While Casey says, that's our line, Scorbunny. And Scorbunny hits Line-In with a scorching kick. Marvin says, it burned. Casey sends it in again, saying, once more. But as it goes in, Line-In disappears, reappearing behind Scorbunny and delivering a kick to its back. Henry, using his Pokédex, says, Line-In's hidden ability is Quick Feet. Its speed goes up when it's affected by status conditions. Yeah, I used that a few times. That would explain why Line-In was kind of like my ace in the hole a lot of times, especially once it evolved. Casey says, no way! But then Henry realizes something on his Pokédex, and then whispers in Twiggy's ear. Grookey seems to understand, heads over behind the Team Yell pair, and then starts whapping them. just whack. The two grunts go running off, saying, don't attack Tyrannus directly. Then Henry hands something over to Casey, saying, Casey, take this. Casey says, okay. Oh, Dynamax Band. Oh, wait. Oh, they corralled the grunts. Oh, for a raid battle. They literally corralled them into a raid battle. Oh, that's funny. As the grunts are sent over near the den by Grookey, saying, cut that out. Henry and Casey grab hold of the grunts' arms and dive into the den. Marvin comes over saying, they disappeared. Henry, Casey, Team Yell, and their Pokemon too. Inside a fight inside the den? What's going on? Oh yeah, they did the little, kneel down and then stand up animation. God, I've seen that animation way too many times. And so Henry, Casey, and the two members of Team Yell are now, a massive Dynamax girder. That's wild. Wild stuff right there. Casey and Henry look around, with Casey saying, this is the inside of the den. It's huge. The grunts freak out, saying, oh, and the male grunt grabs Henry by the shirt, saying, how dare you drag us into a place like this? We can't leave here unless we fight with that Dynamax girder. Henry saying, that's right. Why don't we fight together? The grunts are at a loss for words, but the girder is moving in, and they barely avoid getting hit. The grunt turns around to see his Line-In down, saying, a one-hit KO. The female grunt says, and Dirt yell, Thuval, use Fire Fang. Thuval does just that, launching in, biting on the girder. The girder is, not really affected as it grabs Thuval and throws it. Wow, this kind of a ruthless approach, but they were the ones who attacked them, so this is actually the most clever thing. Man, I missed when the protagonists were this amount of clever. Just kind of little shits about it, As Henry says, it backfired. Maybe its ability is guts. The female grunt says, you're awfully calm now, aren't you? With Henry saying, next, use the same move on its gear. Would you mind attacking its steel beam? You too, Casey. Casey says, got it. and has Score Bunny use Ember on the steel beam. Thuval uses Fire Fang on the steel beam as well, heating it up. The girder hits the Thuval with the beam. As the grunt mourns her Thuval, Casey calls out, "Thuval's out too!" Henry, with a very serious look, says, "Don't stop yet, Casey. Keep heating up its steel beam with Skull Bunny's flames." And as the girder gets hotter and hotter, yeah, I love the out-of-the-box tactics, the kind of stuff you never see just in the game. The male grunt says, "Hey, the steel beam's turning bright red," with Henry just saying, "Yup," and now that beam is too hot to handle for the girder. Henry then calls out, "Now, Lancelot, Brave Bird!" And what an attack name for of all people, Sirfetch'd. It's just like, it was like the attack was made for Sirfetch'd, but the attack came first. So Sirfetch'd launches into the air and dives in on Girder's midsection, doubling it over. Ooh, yes. And so Henry holds out a Pokeball, saying, "All right." His bracelet shines. Energy fills the Pokeball. The Pokeball grows in size. Henry takes the Pokeball, launches it, saying, "Ready, set, go!" It hits Girder, and the massive ball hits the ground with an earth-shaking thud. It then decreases in size. Henry holds up the ball, saying, "I got Girder." Nice. And so Henry, Casey, and Team Yell exits the den, and as Team Yell stomps off, saying, "Damn it!" Henry just gives a bow, saying, "Thank you for your cooperation." So cheeky. Casey says, "So on top of dragging them into a max raid battle with us, getting their Pokemon knocked out." Henry says, "I was able to catch Girder. I've wanted one for a while now." Casey says, "That's our Henry for you. What do you name it?" Okay. In Japanese, it's Beeman, but in English, it's Stealer. Okay. Gotta remember that. Stealer. Twiggy, Lancelot, Stealer. Gotcha. And Sniffler. So Henry says, "I decided to go with Stealer if I got one on my team." Marvin then says, "Did you know there was a girder in the den?" Henry says, "The app told me." Magnolia comes over saying, "Good grief. Just when I told you not to rush into things. Well, you caught it. I take it you were able to make proper use of those Dynamax bands." They hold up their bands. Henry saying, "We were." Casey says, "They worked like a charm." Marvin then asks, "What's a Dynamax band?" "Thank you for continuing to be the surrogate, Marvin." Magnolia says, "You're part of our travel party now, after all. We'll tell you all about us, Marvin." Oh, we're finally going to get a full explanation. Good to know. Good to know. Alright, so, if you haven't noticed, I'm having a deal of issues with this, but not in terms of the story. Usually, I get kind of bored to tears with the explanation of how everything works. It just, some of these end up so front-loaded with so much explanation, it's just like, I'm bored. Not because it's uninteresting, but because you have to keep breaking the action to explain things. But for some reason, the explanation of how things work here in Galar, I'm not bored by it. Like, the way they explain things to Marvin is just, it comes off so natural to me. And I don't hate it or anything like that. Not to mention, Henry and Casey, man, it's been a while since I've just this naturally enjoyed both the protagonists so instantly. Usually at least one of them kind of grades on me, but I'm just like, man, both of these guys are awesome. They are so cool. I just kind of love their personalities. And I guess it's also because neither of them are just a stick in the mud. They're balls of energy. Like, even with the more laid-back personality that Henry has, that feels very kind of indicative of Diamond back in the Diamond and Pearl arc. Yeah, that's what it's kind of like. It's like hanging out with Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum all over again. That's what it is. Because you got the laid-back Henry, and then the rambunctious Casey. But Casey seems to have some kind of memory problem? I wonder what that's about. She doesn't wear the hat! Like, come on! I'm going through the trouble of doing the meme with the Scottish accent, and she's not wearing the dang old hat! I need the Scotsman hat! They are so fun. It's also it's almost like hanging out with, like, Dipper and Mabel in Gravity Falls, if you've seen that. Like, they just mesh so well. I want to know so much about their past, but I guess that's part of the mystery. I also still have to wonder how Hop factors into things, because it's like, Hop is such a big part of everything. It's like, look, with how the role he played in Sun and Moon made sense. Like, despite his reduced role, it's like, there was still enough of a role that I'm just like, no, okay, this makes enough sense. The way they reduced the role of Hal and Lily and Gladion, it was very like, okay, everything still kind of lines up with how those characters needed to progress as people. It's a shame you didn't get to see more of them, but with the nature of the story, it was understandable why you didn't see more of them. But with having the two protagonists here, Hop is so involved with the life of the protagonist in the game. Not having him involved just yet feels weird. Because Hop is just, the relationship with Hop is just way too tight to not have him here now. But I have to assume that we'll get an explanation later. It's also kind of weird that the starter doesn't go to Hop. One of the starters doesn't go to Hop. It's like, come on, what? But I'm hoping that once we get a little bit of an explanation on how things started, we'll see how the start of the game took place, and we'll see more of Hop. Because, again, Hal was kind of hit or miss with Sun and Moon. I liked Hal's development, but I understood how he kind of took a back seat in some areas. But with Hop, he can't have that much of a back seat. Because if you do that, you're going to ruin certain elements that just need to happen. It just needs to happen with his character, especially if you're actually going to go in terms of the Pokemon League in Galar. You didn't do it in Alola. You completely ignored the league in Alola and the development of the league and the Elite Four and all of that. You completely threw that out, which I kind of I feel some kind of way about that in certain conditions, which is why I'm just like, man, I kind of wish they would do another adaptation with like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon and Rainbow Rocket and stuff like that. Like, yeah, that way you can introduce those elements, or you'll have a remake where you can introduce those elements. But it is what it is. But with here, it's just like, Sword and Shield is so straightforward. It is such a straightforward story that if you miss certain beats, you're gonna mess things up for me. Don't mess this up for me. Like, I'm getting kind of touchy about that. But the characters are really bringing me along. Having one of the youngster characters, Marvin, along, that's kind of throwing me, but it's not the first time they've done that. Schoolboy. It's not the first time they've done something like this by making a side character who normally wouldn't be as involved very involved, but man, Marvin better really come through in terms of a lot of this story. And he got the Sobble, so we'll see. But I like this so far. Like, man, this is good stuff. I hope I can continue to feel like this and it keeps this momentum consistently. So we'll see. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you later. So then take care. Bye-bye.